Welcome to JD Fantasy Football. This is David Lamson. I'm joined, as usual, by Jordan Cordova. What's up, Jordan? How are you today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Dave?
I'm recovering. This has been a crazy day in the football world, and I think there are lots of fantasy implications. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I think there's tons of fantasy implications. This is such an exciting time of the year. You really only get there's football season, then there's postseason, then there's the playoffs, and then there's this time free agencies hit. And either this really dictates how the offseason feels for you, right? It's either really boring and everyone re-signs their guys and they call it a day, or it's what we get like today where everything changes, multiple people are going to different areas. It really is fun to I think it affects the draft, the fantasy draft too, right? Because you have,
Mhm.
as we talk about later, you have people like DK Metcalf and stuff like that. How does that affect it? Is that chemistry there? Is the chemistry there with the new quarterback? Is him being on the other side? So there's just so much you just don't know going into the next year, that those picks can either make or break you during the season, depending on how it actually flows. I mean, it's exciting. It's mind melting.
Certainly, if you're a dynasty person, the moving of a DK Metcalf means a lot more to you than it does to someone who's year to year. This all got kicked off by the Rams when they finally re-signed their quarterback, and then the quarterbacks started to fall right into place. And the first one that really popped off the charts to me was Sam Darnold to the Seahawks.
Yeah.
I mean, you go from JSN to from Justin Jefferson as your number one to JSN. What do you think that means for Sam Darnold going forward?
Yeah, I don't know. I still think it's good. Jason's a good receiver. Is he Justin Jefferson? No. Um, Sadly, he doesn't get to play with DK Metcalf on that team as well. But JSN is a good receiver. So I don't know. I think this is really going to test Sam Darnold and who he is, and I think we're going to get to be able to tell what kind of quarterback Sam Darnold. I think it'd be the same situation if Brock Purdy moved from the Niners, right? And he went to a team like Seattle, right? You're going to
Mhm.
really be able to tell, was Sam Darnold the Sam Darnold that we always seen up until he was in the Vikings? Was it the coaching and the receivers that made him look good, or did Sam Darnold actually make a step forward? Yeah, that's a fun one, right? Because that could be a late round draft pick that might hit pretty all right, but might just be a total dud.
Yeah, I don't see Taylor being faithful to Sam Darnold again this year, picking him up. But he's moving from a dome to playing outside in Seattle for most of his games. That's going to be a tough a transition for anybody. But with that, with Seattle, it feels like they're making an offensive investment. I feel like they're going away from their bread and butter of having a stout defense, and they're trying to revamp this offense while getting rid of their older receivers and drafting young. It feels like this new coach wants to be more of an attack type coach instead of just have a game manager as a quarterback like Geno Smith.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely think that's the case, and uh, you know, I think that with the addition of Sam Darnold, they're really saying that, like, because let's be honest, Sam Darnold's not like he's a risk. He's a high risk, could be high reward if he plays anything like he did last year, right? So you're
Mhm.
really taking that risk. I don't think they're saying, "Hey, we're rebuilding" by any means. I mean, they have Kenneth Walker, they have Zach Charbonnet, both pretty solid running backs back there. JSN is coming out to be a pretty good receiver. So I think they're just trying to win now, and they're taking the risk on Sam Darnold rather than knowing what they have with Geno Smith in year out.
Tough division. I think the division, they've got some good quarterbacks in that division, so they had to answer in some way. So let's move. I mean, Sam Darnold, awesome. Good for him in Seattle. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. But Geno Smith has fallen off my radar. Geno Smith going to the Raiders is I'm not even going to take a risk and put him on my roster until I see something out of that Raiders team. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's a good late round flyer. I think super late round, kind of as your second quarterback as backup, because it could turn out to be pretty well. I mean, Jacoby Myers did play all right, or played pretty good last year. Showed you have probably the best tight end, Brock Bowers, on that team who he can throw to. Depending on what they do running back wise, whether they pick it up through the draft or maybe grab another running back um, throughout the time. Uh, I hope they don't pick it through the draft, but it could definitely be through the draft. But Gino's not bad. I mean, if you think about last year, he was leading in a lot of categories throughout a lot of the year. Mind you, they were throwing the ball almost consistently throughout the whole time. Um, but I wouldn't mind taking a late flyer on Gino and seeing if he's the next, right? Like Bo Nix or some other type of player that Sam Darnold, for example, last year, right, could be a good pickup to have and could really kind of explode there. But it's really going to depend on what they do during the draft and running game wise, what they can accomplish.
Well, staying with the quarterback world, Justin Fields no longer with the Steelers. A lot of people say that he didn't really get a fair shake there, but now he's going to the Jets where he will simply be running for his life, something that he's good at. He's good at running. He played for the Bears. What do you think that does for them? I mean, that's rebuild time for the Jets, right? They've clearly thrown in the towel.
Yeah, I don't know if they've thrown in I mean, you got rid of Devontae Adams, right? Well, you didn't get rid of him, but you didn't try to keep him. You didn't keep him. So, right. So now you're saying, the one thing that is cool is that Justin Fields did throw to Garrett Wilson in college. So they do have that kind of chemistry with each other. So maybe that is a good Garrett Wilson year. I don't know if I'm biting that bullet again this year, like I did last year. But I don't know. Justin Fields is a glorified running back quarterback, right? Like he's a runner. That's what he's going to do. It's not focused on the passing. So once again, it's going to be a lot of with all these trades and stuff happening. It's going to be a real big tell all for everybody, right? I think it's the same scenario with Sam Darnold. We will find out who Justin Fields is. Is he simply just a running quarterback, or can he actually progress and be better? I don't think he was that. I think Russell Wilson was the better change for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You see it in George Pickens' George Pickens' numbers last year when Russell Wilson came in, significantly better than when Justin Fields was in the game.
So let's stay with quarterbacks. We got Caleb in the chat here. His Colts have picked up Daniel Jones. He seems pretty excited about Danny Dimes there in Indianapolis. I'm looking for, I mean, he's going to throw the ball and he can take some hits, man. The Giants pretty much left him out dry. Yeah, he can take some hits. He can throw the ball. The Colts, are they for real now? Are they for real with Danny Dimes?
I don't know if I'm saying they're for real. I mean, the Giants, the worst team in the league, just was fine with just dumping him out of their fucking organization. But my thing for Danny Dimes is that if I was a Colt fan, I'd be jumping up and down too, because he's one of two things. One, he's not going to get tired and come out of the game. And two, he's not Anthony Richardson. So, yeah, I mean, let's go, right? I think he's more mobile than Joe Flacco was. He does have an arm somewhat. But yeah, I still think it's going to be quite a rough year for Indianapolis Colts fans this year. I'm sorry, Caleb.
I haven't seen what else the Colts have been up to, but I think they've been pretty quiet in free agency outside of Danny Dimes. Maybe it gets rolling now.
Yeah. Maybe they try to find something else, like what else can we pick up? Is Zamir White available?
Yeah.
I think Kadarius Toney might be out of jail or something like that. Yeah, so you might be able to pick him up.
That's trouble. That is trouble. My goodness. Well, let's move over to receivers, because a couple of things happened that I'm interested in. Obviously, we got Chris Godwin standing at Tampa. No surprises there. Everyone's pretty excited about that. He was great when he was great. Look, just need him to stay healthy. Davante Adams goes to the Rams, and they're going to be fighting over that number 17 there. Puka, he was the number 1 at the end of the year last year. And then Devontae is a solid red zone target. I mean, Cooper's redundant, right? Like Cooper was
the
same receiver as Puka.
Yeah, the problem was is they're the same receiver. Puka's younger and not as injury prone, and it ended with better chemistry in the long run, right? Puka is obviously going to be the number one guy there. I don't think Devonte Adams takes that. Obviously, Cooper Cup, even though he was number one and had the legendary season, he didn't even take that over. I think it's pretty good. It's going to be, I think it's a good combo between Puka and Devonte Adams, one on each side. But let's see how Devonte Adams does, without Aaron Rodgers just force feeding the crap out of the ball out of him. Because I don't think that that's going to be the case with Matthew Stafford. I think he's going to use Puka in the same way that he used Puka last year and the year before that. And Devonte Adams will get the Cooper Cup role where it's whatever's left over. That's be ready to eat. I think more touchdowns, though. I think more touchdowns in the aspect of uh, he's a big end zone target.
Yeah, the Rams are certainly making moves like they're ready to go. So Devontae, I was wondering who was going to pick him up. So Cooper Cup, where does he go? Does he go to my Packers? Does he go to your Cowboys? Where does he end up?
I would really love him at the Cowboys. I think him being on the other side of CD Lamb and also, but they kind of play a similar style in a way, right? They're both kind of like quick and kind of getting out of there. So with Brandon Cooks as the third guy there, could be really fun. I mean, really, once again, really test Dak and see if that's your solution for the future, or do we try to go in the draft and get young at some point? But I think Cooper Cup, I mean, I was actually, weirdly enough, I thought that he should have gone to, I know we're going to talk about him in just a second, but I think the Ravens should have picked him up.
Mm-hmm.
I think Zay Flowers is a good receiver, but is he that number one guy? I mean, he definitely had some capabilities last year, or so showed a little promise last year, but it wasn't like he was outstanding by any means. So I thought there were some teams that really could have used that type of receiver that did not get him. Mind you, it's not over because he hasn't been signed yet, but Packers could definitely be one. I mean, they need a veteran in that room. They need a veteran in that receiver room to, have these young guys because they have a lot of good young talent. I think just having Cooper Cup there and showing them what a veteran does could really benefit the Packers receiving core.
I agree. They had some off the field troubles last year. Dobbs out for doing some weird stuff in the middle of the season. Yeah, I think that they benefit. Obviously, the Bills. The Bills are a team that could use another top end, second, third tier receiver. Mac Hollins went to the Patriots. I thought that was a weird. Why? That doesn't do anything for anybody. Did he just want out or what?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm the Patriots, like, what does that do for me, right?
Yeah.
Like, what makes him any different than Pop Douglas or any other receiver that I already have on this team? Like, let's just grab a bunch of mediocre receivers and throw them in a room and hope that our quarterback's good enough to get the job done. So
Yeah, Mac doesn't wear shoes. He's got to play either in a dome or in the South. Like, what's he doing?
he was fine with being shoeless in the snow. All right, Dave, come on.
Not a
He
good
was
look.
cool.
Not a good look. It was weird, man.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Josh Palmer to the Bills, maybe just an upgrade on top of Hollins.
I
That's
think so. I think so. I do definitely think there's an upgrade there. Josh Palmer did prove that he could be, a good target for Justin Herbert. He wasn't Quentin Johnson dropping every other pass that kind of runs his way.
goodness.
Weird to me if they don't pick it up in the receive or if they don't pick it up in the draft, what the Chargers are going to do without that. Because honestly, he was when he wasn't injured, definitely the second guy on that team that Herbert could trust outside
Maybe
of Lad
Disley.
McConkey. Yeah, and Will Disley. Yeah, you're right. But like,
Not a
what
lot
is
after
so
that.
you're gonna play Quentin Johnson more? Like, what do you like? Like, what are you gonna do if you don't get another receiver? Who's your, maybe they're thinking in the draft they can pick up another lad. There that possibility, but it's interesting to see what they'll do in the draft now that they've gotten rid of Joshua Palmer.
So, who stands out to you as far as receivers who have a new home, whether it's DeAndre Hopkins or DK Metcalf or Debo Samuel? Like, who is the biggest winner as far as fantasy goes? Who improved their fantasy stock?
Um,
Obviously, we don't know who the quarterback is in the Steeler country,
yeah.
but
So
really,
Steelers would be interesting for me because there is so much. I thought that there was a lot of other receivers who were getting touchdowns that just because they were on the other side of George Pickens. Um, So that would be interesting. I just don't know who's throwing him the ball. So
mhm,
like, right? Even if Aaron Rodgers. So my question is like the big talk is like Aaron Rodgers is coming to Pittsburgh, right? There's a lot of talk on that could be the scenario. For me, what does that change in the aspect of Aaron Rodgers was in the same scenario at the Jets, two good receivers, still didn't show anything that was promising. I just don't think. I mean, personally, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, probably just needs to retire at this point. I don't see that really being the thing. But for me, probably Debo Samuel's is the most interesting. If he gets a little bit more in shape, he's only competing with Terry McLaurin, really. The other one was who Zay Brown or whatever his name was. That was on the other side that had a pretty good year. But I think Debo Samuels could potentially bring himself back into contention. I mean, we forget that he was quick and one of the better, like one of the top 2, 3 receivers in the league, just not 2 years ago. Um, so
fantasy
yeah,
wise,
I think
though,
Debo
I just
Samuels
don't
could be.
I don't think he improved his draft stock in fantasy. Like, I don't think anyone says, "Oh, yeah, he is," because there are a lot of mouths to feed there in Washington. I know that you say that they don't have a ton, but he spread that ball out pretty good.
He
Um,
did, but you noticed, the people that were some of his favorites were the ones who were getting a ton of those targets. I mean, Terry McLaurin got in the end zone all the time. They're going to run. I mean, the Dan over there is he loves to run his plays. There's such a Swiss Army knife with Debo Samuels of how quick he used to be. Now, mind you, does he need to lose a little weight? Yeah, hopefully he can get that settled. But if he can get back to any sort of form that he used to be in, you can run. They loved the screen pass. They loved, they didn't like Jaden Daniels holding on to the ball for a continuous amount of time. Usually it was come back, quick, boom. I mean, he did throw some down the field. He threw plenty of down the field, but a lot of it was quick plays. And Debo Samuel kind of plays perfectly into that quick play type of scenario, I think.
yeah, he does get that ball. Bubble screens is what I heard Orlovsky talk about as far as what works with Debo, and yeah, I agree 100%. He's going to fit into that offense just fine. So yeah, maybe he is the one as far as receivers that pops up and is maybe a little more certain than he would have been with the 49ers, who
I'll
just
tell you the
because he's a running
one.
back and they just kill
Yeah.
their running backs over there.
Yeah. I'll tell you the one that I am least impressed with. DeAndre Hopkins. Listen,
Hmm.
I have nothing. Legend. I'm not going to sit here and bash DeAndre Hopkins' career because he was a legend. He was amazing. Not the same player that he used to be. I mean, he went to a team with Patrick Mahomes, who is arguably one of the better, like, mind you, fantasy wise, I probably would still stay away from him another year, but was one of the better quarterback, or is probably one of they considered the GOAT. Probably not as much anymore after the loss to the butt kicking to Philadelphia, but um, and you didn't do much. I didn't even notice he was on the first game. It was like, oh yeah, because we all focused on it so much. But after that, it was essentially like he was the same player he was in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Like you just didn't notice he was there. Lamar Jackson had Zay Flowers. He wasn't known for just like targeting these big players, right? Like he throws that ball pretty much. He's running 90% of the time. And when he's running, he's just throwing to who he can find open at that point. It's not like he's going to be sitting in the pocket targeting DeAndre Hopkins all the time. And even if he did, I just don't know. Yeah, I just don't. It didn't impress me that that was who you added to try to increase your receiver room. It seems like a very Baltimore Raven pickup to me.
I think the Ravens are right there. I think they're very confident that they can just run it back with Derrick Henry and Lamar and what they've got. Adding a little depth at the receiver doesn't hurt them. with the additional cap space this year the league gave everyone is pretty much a free player for them. So I like this move. But again, when he dropped that pass in the Super Bowl, I was like, oof.
I
That's
mean, they just had
that
what
was
was
a
his name?
momentum shift for sure in that game.
Bro, they just had Deontay Johnson that they picked up and just never played.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
That's true.
what Deontay Johnson has had better successful seasons earlier on than DeAndre Hopkins' best successful season, the last best successful season. So if you're not
Even
using
Mark
Deontay
Andrews
Johnson
struggled
at
to get
all,
going last year.
yeah, my just thing is just like even what makes there's nothing in me that sees that if you didn't use Deontay Johnson because you were happy with we have so much talent in this receiving room, right? Why does DeAndre Hopkins change that matter? I mean, he's a bigger guy, don't get me wrong, and maybe that's what they're going to use him for. It's just that end zone target, but I don't see him just being, punished with receptions coming his way all the time.
Well, looking at running backs last year, running backs big time moves. This year, not so much. Just a
Yeah.
couple have popped off so far. Najee Harris to the Chargers didn't really impress you a lot. I do. It's a step back for Herbert. I think he needs protection, and I don't think Najee is he's gonna get blown up in that backfield by Bosa, who left their team. Um, yeah, I'm not in love with that Najee Harris to the Chargers.
I wasn't in love with Najee Harris in Pittsburgh. He did earn his stripes. I'm not going to say he didn't. And maybe he was. But if you can't make it in Pittsburgh, who wants to focus on running the ball,
Mm-hmm.
why do I think he's going to make it any better? Like, yes, is he a better pass catcher? Sure. But Jalen Warren was the best pass catcher on that team,
That's true.
right? And so why do I think that he's going to be much better than J.K. Dobbins? He might not get as injured. That might be the better part, but I'd say J.K. Dobbins to me had more talent than Najee Harris has. Najee Harris just might be a little bit more consistent throughout the year.
Dobbins was a pretty high pick last year. Doubt Najee gets that same nod with the Chargers. He might be a late round. Let's see what he does.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could still be a pretty good, if you're going to be the starter for any team, right, that can get down the field, and Justin Herbert definitely can throw the ball down the field.
Oh yeah,
I think he still could be a top 10, 15 running back that you pick up. Maybe 15, closer to the 15
Okay, I
area.
was like, that's pretty generous for someone
Not
who's
10,
not so happy
not
about it.
10, but I mean, anytime you can, right, I'm going to pick up Jerome Ford, and, at some point, if he's the only running back for the Cleveland Browns, their team sucks, but to have the starting running back for any team is pretty solid. Maybe not 15, maybe it's top 20. All right, let's go 15 to 20.
Okay. Well, along those same lines, your Cowboys made an underwhelming pickup.
Woo!
Javonte
Leave it
Williams.
to Jerry.
What
Leave
are
it to
your
Jerry.
thoughts for Javonte Williams from Denver? What do you think?
Leave it to Jerry to be aggressive on the running back position when it sucks. The free agency sucks for running backs. So that's Jerry in the nutshell, right?
Yeah.
Screw spending the money on Derrick Henry, who wanted to come here.
Let's
Let's get Javonte.
You missed somebody last year. I can't remember.
Who didn't we miss
Josh
last
Jacobs,
year, bro? Right? Who didn't we miss on? Anybody who was anybody was out there for free agency last year. We're like, nah, we're cool. We're gonna fight with CeeDee Lamb for the next few months, and then we'll make a big purchase on him. So we'll be cool.
So Javonte Williams, do you think that raises his draft stock though? I think it does, going from Denver.
Absolutely.
The
thing is that the Cowboys, nobody really knows the coach, what this coach is going to do. He didn't call offensive plays last year. He was the offensive coordinator. So who really knows what's going to happen with him. But I hopefully he's running the ball a little bit more. I think if they would have when Dowdle was successful was when Dak wasn't there.
That's true.
And so I think if they did that style of play where they had a lot more running mixed in and played Dak as that, pass or, play action type of player, but Dak's really good at play action. So if they do that, I do think Javonte is going to go up in stock, and only for the fact that once again, he's going to be a starting running back for this team. He's year and a half, 2 years off of his ACL. He had a terrible knee injury. So he's probably just starting to get his confidence back, being able to push off it. If we forget, Javonte was a really good running back before he got injured. He was like one of the top young running backs during that time. So I'm hoping as a Dallas fan that that's what happens. But it could just be another Rico Dowdle, which I wouldn't be terrible with, but nothing terrible, but it's not anything that's going to really, it's not putting butts in seats for sure.
Yeah, outside of the quarterback position, and I guess we're thinking Deebo Samuel, maybe DK Metcalf, not a ton of fantasy implications. So what would it take? What would it take for you to make Kenny Pickett? He's gone to the Browns. What would it take to make him your starting quarterback next year? What?
Maybe to own a college team. Like, I don't know, man. I don't. Here's my thing. If you're going into this year, this is what's so frustrating. And if I'm not even a Browns fan, I don't even really like the Browns, but I just feel so much pain for the Brown fans. Not only did you trade everything away for excuse my language, for freaking Deshaun Watson, right? That just didn't turn out. You now put a lot of money into Myles Garrett. Is he worth the money? Absolutely, he's worth the money as a player, as talent. But then you go get Kenny Pickett. It's like, I don't get what is going on with this team. Now, maybe they're like, we're going to draft high. I would care to guess that they're going to take a gamble in the draft with somebody. They're going to draft high.
Number 2 pick.
They're going to take that chance. Hopefully, if they do not pick a quarterback, all I'm saying is you don't have receivers. I mean, Jerry Jeudy turned out to be pretty decent last year.
Yeah.
Which was great, right?
Mostly in his revenge game.
And mostly with Jameis Winston, right? So, so if you don't really have the most amazing receivers, your running back that was a star is, got injured at the end of the year and was injured, for a whole year. And then Jerome Ford. So I just don't get what the Myles Garrett thing does. You have a perfect opportunity. He's like, trade me. Cool. You would get some picks for Myles Garrett to trade Myles Garrett to somebody. And you took an opportunity to really regrow that team, try to lay off get the Deshaun Watson contract out of the way, start getting some young pieces into your organization, start building the right way. And then instead you were like, let's spend a bunch of cap space on Myles Garrett and just keep him locked in.
What's tough to watch is they spend all that money to paint Brownie the Elf on the field, and they just make it look bad. Like a bad logo, it looks worse when they're just losing on top of it.
And who wants to have an elf?
It's brutal. And it's like questionable. It's like, what is that? What are they?
You guys came from like the Dogs was the way better way to go. Like you could have just I mean, it's just bad decision after bad decision after. Let's get rid of Baker Mayfield, which is probably your first bad decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that looks so bad in history. That looks so bad.
Bro, he took you to the playoffs. You guys were like, we want to get the guy who is borderline going to jail for, sexual assault, Deshaun Watson. So we're going to get rid of Baker Mayfield. Let's get Deshaun Watson in here. And
maybe
then
Justin Tucker too. Let's bring him on.
Let's get all the questionables, Xavier Worthy's beating up on his family, so maybe we could try to trade for him as well, like
hey, that was alleged. That was alleged.
I'm sorry.
Witnesses said it didn't happen.
Oh, okay.
Alleged.
Well, money.
Let's not kick a man while he's down. Okay.
You're right. I'm sorry. I jumped the gun there a little bit. All I'm saying, I know for sure it wasn't alleged that Kadarius Toney choked some woman out. All right, so let's bring him back in here. Well, who else can we take that's questionable here? It's just a bad. it's just bad decision from the Browns. They made a good decision by drafting Baker Mayfield,
They did.
then made a poor decision by saying, let's go with Deshaun Watson instead.
So let's finish on this. So this is my favorite scenario that we came up today. Just as we started talking about coming on tonight, we were discussing a possible situation that could happen this year, which is a fantasy nightmare. But there's a chance this year that in the Miami Dolphins, you could have Zach Wilson throwing to Nick Westbrook-Akine. That is a crazy sentence to even say. The darling of every sleeper across the internet last year might go to the Dolphins and have Zach Wilson play when their quarterback decides to just take a tackle head on.
I'm not going to wear a Guardian. Screw my career, right? Like Mr. Tua himself could go out at any moment. You're going to have Zach Wilson, which I personally, all jokes aside, I think Zach Wilson got a really bad rep for himself because of the fact that Aaron Rodgers did not do very much better on that Jets team, probably with more talent than Zach Wilson did for that team.
I don't think that's true. I think Rodgers
record. What's the records?
Well, the record, that's true, but he did do better than Zach as far as throwing 28 touchdowns. How many did Zach throw? Zach Wilson. I want to know how many he threw because I'm contesting that with the Jets. There was a second where we had two people on. It was close. 23.
I mean, that was over his career.
Out of all 3 years. Yeah, no, I'm contesting that. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers threw 28 in 1 year. I mean, that's a lot better than Zach Wilson, man.
Yeah, but he only had Garrett Wilson. He didn't have Devontae Adams to just check it to for half the year.
I mean, clearly they gave Rodgers protection that he had better protection than Zach Wilson too. That's for sure. At least they tried, and they brought in some receivers for him for sure. But Zach Wilson, he threw 23 in 3 years. I mean, he looked bad.
Yeah,
he
was
bad. Really bad.
I'm just saying, you know.
Does that make sense for the Dolphins to pick up Zach Wilson? Like, what is that?
I don't know. I mean, it's just a backup. I think they're still they're still going with Tua. They don't want to pay big money for another backup guy. Zach Wilson has starting experience.
Well, they got rid of a Utah Ute and plugged him in with a BYU Cougar.
Yeah, essentially.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
I mean, they're going Cougars. Cougars are on the up right now, buddy. I don't know if you know this, but like football and basketball.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Not all around. I hate to say it, I voted for them to win in basketball and football because they had the better chance to represent Utah in playoffs or in the March Madness.
They were garbage. Absolutely. I watched that Utah offense this year in basketball, and I was like, what is this? The coach had to go. I was not surprised when he was fired because that offense was ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah,
well, absolutely. I just wanted to finish on that BYU Utah note. Any other thoughts about fantasy implications today? Any wild takes? Any ideas? I know you're in the heat of your selling season, installation training season over there with your job, but we're gonna keep track on the draft and free agency, and if we have any more updates, we'll let you guys know.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I have any crazy takes right now, other than I think even though they just only got Deebo Samuels, I project that the Cowboys are going to the Super. No, I'm just kidding. I think the Commanders are definitely could definitely make it to the Super Bowl this year.
So no sophomore slump for Jaden Daniels. That's what I'm hearing. Okay. No, I do think it's different. I do.
Yeah.
I think there's a possibility it could happen. A lot of people are saying that, like, schedule wise, they overachieved. They beat a Lions team. They beat the brakes off the Lions, and that's not going to happen again. But yeah,
I don't know why not. I mean, I think that they were well their team was well put together. They're only adding more. They're way ahead of schedule and they just added better pieces throughout the time this year. So
yeah, they ran into that Eagles buzzsaw. That was the problem, that they ran into
yeah,
that, which everyone
I
did.
hate the Eagles. They were a great team last year.
He just blurted out,
I hate the Eagles.
I hate the
They were a
Eagles.
great team last year.
Yeah, and they're
I
just
mean,
they just seem to be getting they lost a lot of guys though in free agency. You see that?
I saw like they lost to Gardner.
Gardner Johnson. They lost a linebacker. They lost a couple guys. It'll be interesting to see what their reload looks like.
Are they the number one defense again, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all know one thing is true. Jalen Hurts will get 20 rushing touchdowns because Saquon got him down to the 1 yard line.
Tush push, baby. Packers are trying to outlaw it. We're trying.
I want it too. I want it so badly. What happens when you don't have the tush push? You have to actually run your running backs.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
all right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Jordan. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Upload complete.